Hello, this is step 8, study number 2. One of the quickest ways I can get myself into a pretty down mood is imagining all the ways I may have hurt my children when they were growing up. What about this decision? What about this one? Maybe I didn't do this enough or that. Maybe I hurt my kids in some way that I wasn't aware. I think a lot of mothers can relate to that and maybe dads as well. But this is the case with this list. Now, thinking about things that we may have done ages ago that we probably didn't even do is one thing. But another thing is to really acknowledge those unintentional things that we did to harm other people. For instance, one of my sons wishes he'd been pushed a little harder in the direction of sports because he believes he would have been a good baseball player. He may have been. We didn't have the money or the inclination to really push him in that direction because of the odds of success. Well, they're not great, are they? So it was one of those things that I can look back on and say, did I make that mistake? I don't consider that a sin. It was a question of judgment. But did it harm my son? I'll have to ask him. And that's what we can do with this list too, is ask people, have we harmed you in some way? Now, in the Bible, we are told that unintentional sins are still sins, and we have to be aware of them and be willing to make amends for them. There's a long piece of scripture that is supposed to go along with this study, Leviticus chapter 4, verses 1 to 28. I'm not going to read the whole thing. One of the reasons is because it lists people who may have made unintentional sins, and then lists the way that they can seek forgiveness. And in those days, way back in the early Bible times, the way to pay for your sin was to make a sacrifice, and there was a lot of ritual to it. So to read about the high priest who needed to make atonement for his sins in detail, and then read about the community whose sins had to be atoned for in detail, and then to read about the leaders and the individuals, it's very long. I do recommend that you read it. There's nothing about the word that is bad, and I recommend that you read it because it shows a picture of God and His mercy, and it's also a shadow of what Christ did for us on the cross. I will read this little bit of a summary that is written in the Life Recovery Bible, which is another book I hope you've purchased. The devotional inside of it kind of sums it up this way: that when God gave the commandments, He included instructions for handling mistakes as well as intentional sins. He said, "Give the following instructions to the people of Israel. This is how you are to deal with those who sin unintentionally by doing anything that violates one of the Lord's commands. If any of the common people sin by violating one of the Lord's commands, but they don't realize it, they are still guilty. When they become aware of their sin, they must bring as an offering for their sin a female goat with no defects. But suppose you unintentionally fail to carry out all these commands that the Lord has given you. If the mistake was made unintentionally and the community was unaware of it, the whole community must present a young bull for a burnt offering, and they will be forgiven. For it was an unintentional sin, and they have corrected it with their offerings to the Lord." I believe some of that was actually from Numbers, chapter 15. I'll leave you with that. Have a good day.